Tikatee here with Questline Esports, and here's everything you need to know about Orisa. Orisa's primary fire shoots her Fusion Driver, which fires a fast-moving projectile with an automatic fire rate. This weapon has no ammo requirement, but does have a heat mechanic tied to it, which will prevent you from firing if you allow your weapon to overheat. Her secondary fire throws her Energy Javelin, which will fire a javelin forward that does damage, knockback, and will briefly stun enemies. If the knockback causes an enemy to collide with a wall, they'll receive additional damage and be stunned for slightly longer. Since this can stun enemies, it's great for interrupting channeled abilities and for lining up follow-up damage once they're knocked into a wall. Her first ability is Fortify. You'll gain overhealth, damage reduction, become immune to headshots and crowd control effects, as well as generate less heat with your primary fire for the duration. This is your go-to defensive cooldown and makes you extremely tanky and impossible to disrupt. Use this when you want to absorb damage and pressure from multiple enemies, or just when you need to survive if you drop too low during a fight. Her second ability is Javelin Spin. Spin your javelin in front of you, increasing your move speed, knocking back enemies' hit, and absorbing any incoming projectiles. The absorption functions similarly to D.Va's Defense Matrix or Sigma's Kinetic Grasp, meaning beam-type weapons will not be affected, but any projectile, including ultimates from characters like Zarya or Tracer, will be destroyed. This is another great defensive tool that's best used to deny high-value projectiles, such as Ana's Biotic Grenade, or Ashe's Dynamite, or of course ultimates like the ones I mentioned. But it's also a strong disruption tool to deny space to enemies trying to push into you, or even to knock players off of high grounds or off the map for some environmental kills. Orisa's ultimate is Terra Surge. Orisa will pull enemies towards her and begin damaging and slowing enemies in an area around her. Orisa will then begin channeling a damage burst and can press primary fire to deal damage based on how long she's been channeling to all enemies in range of her area of effect. The amount of damage done is equal to the charge percentage shown on screen during the channel, up to a maximum of 500 damage. Orisa plays like a juggernaut, which means she can last a long time under pressure and hits back hard against enemies who get too close. She likes to hold down the front line with her abundance of defensive cooldowns and high health pool, and she'll want to hold down choke points and corners that make it difficult for enemies to maneuver around her and force them to try going through her instead. My advice is to try and get the most value from every single one of your defensive cooldowns whenever you can. You don't want to use everything all at once at the first sign of trouble, and instead should be trying to absorb as much pressure over time as possible. You can survive through many things the enemy team throws your way with strong positioning and cooldown usage, which will help you outlast your enemies. Once you've handled the enemy's aggression, Orisa can also be quite the playmaker herself. You can look to punish individuals with your Energy Javelin and quickly finish them off with your team, or lock down entire team fights with your Terra Surge. But don't forget, safety is your primary concern.